On the program today, South African Olympic athlete Oscar Pistorius is granted bail while awaiting sentence in the murder of his girlfriend Reeva Steenkamp. Ghana sacks 20 judges and magistrates following thorough investigation into allegations of corruption in the judiciary. Africa's renewable plan is our focus as the climate change summit continues all the way in Paris. Network Africa begins right now. Welcome to the program. I am Amarachi Ubani. Let's begin in South Africa, where Olympic athlete Oscar Pistorius prevented his impending stay in jail by a few weeks after the court granted him bail today. Last week, his conviction was overturned, the court finding him guilty of murdering his girlfriend, Miss Reeva Steenkamp. It's a crime that could earn him 15 years in prison. Pistorius appealed the judgments, and the courts granted him a 10,000 rand bail while he awaits sentencing to be set after a hearing on April 18, 2016. Pistorius will also appeal against his murder conviction in the Constitutional Court, which could result in many more months in court.
Olympic and Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius arrived at Pretoria High Court in South Africa to apply for bail following his conviction for murdering his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp.
The accused is before fixing them out.
Pistorius, known as Blade Runner because of the carbon fiber prosthetic blades he used to race, faces a minimum 15-year jail sentence.
That the mere fact that the accused will be under house arrest.
The Supreme Court last Thursday, December 3rd, upgraded the 29-year-old athlete's sentence to murder from culpable homicide, South Africa's equivalent of manslaughter, for which he had received a 5-year sentence.
The accused will be labeled Exhibit A.
Pistorius was released from jail on October 19 and has been meant to serve the rest of that 5-year sentence under house arrest at his uncle's house in a wealthy suburb of the capital, Pretoria. The athlete killed Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013 after firing 4 shots through a locked toilet door. He said he mistook Steenkamp for a burglar, while prosecutors argued that he had intended to kill her. Lawyer says Pistorius will seek permission to appeal his conviction for murdering his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, at the Constitutional Court.
Joining me now to make a sense of the latest on the Olympic athlete is Charles Phillips, who's a former prosecutor at the International Criminal Court. Charles, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Why do you think the courts granted Oscar Pistorius bail and also extended, the waiting period before his sentence hearing?
Well, the primary reason is because Oscar Pistorius had actually lodged an appeal against the judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeals. So the appeal was lodged to the Constitutional Court, which is the equivalent of the Supreme Court of South Africa. As you know, with proceedings before superior courts, they can take some time, and I think the judge had to bear that in mind, that the appeal before the Supreme Court or the Constitutional Court will take about a year. In that regard, it wouldn't have served the interest of justice not to grant Mr. Pistorius bail pending the outcome of that appeal.
And he's also expected to appeal his conviction by the time the court meets again next year. What are his chances that this could be possible? His conviction could be overturned again?
Well, very slim in my opinion. The basis of the appeal to the Supreme Court, the South African Constitutional Court, is essentially that the Supreme Court of Appeals, which is their court of appeal, are considered matters of fact as opposed to matters of law. The appeal that had been lodged was essentially based on matters of law, the defense respondent rather consider that the court may have applied other considerations and reopened the facts of the case. But I don't think that that is accurate. I think what the judge did was find that the trial judge had misdirected herself on the application of the law. And having considered the facts, they found that the trial judge had misapplied the element of dolus eventualis, which is essentially a matter of law, not a matter of fact. So I think that Mr. Pistorius' chances on appeal to the Constitutional Court are indeed very slim.
And let's look at the implications, that this sets for the judicial system in South Africa. This sort of thing has never happened before. So what are the lessons that the country can learn from what has just happened?
Well, I guess essentially the message is this. I mean, if you are rich enough to fund an elaborate legal appeal, then you proceed. I mean, how many people in South Africa can afford a Supreme Court of Appeal matter, let alone a Constitutional Court of Appeal matter? And that brings to point the fact that Oscar Pistorius claims to be broke and cannot even afford to pay the bail sum. How then is he affording to pay his lawyers, who are some of the most experienced lawyers in South Africa, in a matter before the Supreme Court? Basically, it's one law for the rich and one law for the less privileged, basically. It doesn't send the right signals.
Well, thank you so much, Charles Phillips, for joining us on Network Africa. Appreciate your thoughts on the issue.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Oscar Pistorius, again, let's recap that story for you. The Olympic athlete prevented his impending stay in jail by just a few weeks, or we could say a few months, because court will be convening again in April, on April 18th, 2016. He could face 15 years in prison if the sentence is made. Our correspondent in South Africa, Betty Debo, joins us now to give us more perspective on this. Betty, thank you for joining us on Network Africa. Let's look at the dates. Thank you. Let's look at the dates that the court has set for the sentence. April 18th, 2016. Why that far away?
You know that Oscar's case is not the only case in the country, and you have a court role. So it's the place in the role. But in this case, the date, this is not for resentencing. This date is actually for that particular court to get an update on his process of appeal at the Constitutional Court. So the date for resentencing hasn't even been chosen. So now courts are winding up, and
your call credit has been exhausted.
And it does seem we have lost Betty. We'll try to reconnect with her and continue the conversation. But when we come back on Network Africa, down to the climate change talks, which will be coming much later on the program.